Laowa is moving up market with this, their latest and fastest micro four thirds lens ever. The brand new 25mm Argus 0.95. Let's go! Hi, my name is Cheng, a professional photographer and filmmaker based in London. Laowa, or Laowa in Mandarin, in my humble opinion, is very much like Sigma, in a good way. They are creative, adventurous, and aggressive to say the least. Laowa is currently the only Chinese lens manufacturer that creates premium third-party lenses for all kinds of platforms. Unlike Sigma though, Laowa is pumping more resources into making new and exciting micro four thirds lenses. And this 25mm Argus 0.95 is a prime example of what they want to give us, micro four thirds photographers and videographers, a premium build lens with great optics, just without a premium price tag. Sounds good? Oh yes. Speaking of price, the 25mm 0.95 has a list price of only $399, which to me is a bargain, especially when you consider its performance, which I will cover later in this video. I have reviewed many 0.95 lenses from China lately, like the 7 Artisans 35 and 50mm 0.95, also Metacon 17mm 0.95 last year. None, I would say, with the exception of 7 Artisans 50mm 0.95, perform nearly as good as Laowa's latest offering. From what I remember though, this Argus 0.95 performs much better than Voigtlander's Nocton 25mm 0.95 that cost more new a few years back. So to me, Laowa may have produced a winner here. But before I can confirm my initial thoughts, let's go through my standard evaluations and see if Argus is as good as it seems. I still remember the days when Laowa lenses looked like any budget lenses from China. Boxy, cylindrical, functional, yet quite boring to look at, if I may say. But the Argus? Well, it may pave the way for a new design signature for my favourite Chinese lens manufacturer. The design is modern and clean, which looks like a direct result of a marriage between the famous Nikon's Noct 58mm 0.95 and the ultra-expensive Leica Noctilux 50mm 0.95, which is no bad thing. The smoothed out edges makes it quite an easy lens to operate. And overall, I think the Argus is by far the best looking Laowa lens to date. Build quality is something that I don't really need to say much these days. Laowa just keeps improving this department every year. Both the focus and aperture rings are smooth like hot knife slicing butter, and there's absolutely no play or wobble anywhere on the lens. In short, every inch of this Argus, including the detachable metal lens hood, is as premium as any high-end glass on the market. Like any 0.95 lenses on the market, regardless of format, the Argus is big and heavy, for a micro four thirds lens at least. And there is a lot of glass inside this lovely, smooth barrel. But at 570 grams, without a hood, it's heavier than my EM1 Mark III body, and just about the same weight as the new OM1. And because of that, you really need a large grip, like a DSLR-shaped body, before you hurt your wrist. The heavier front also means that the balance is upset, and everything just seems to tilt forward, even when the camera is hanging around your neck. But this is not unusual these days, especially with full-frame bodies when the lenses are bigger and heavier than the body itself. Another thing to note is that the aperturing is clickless. So while this lens is a photographer's lens, I would like to have clicked aperture instead. Yet this is something I'm starting to get used to with all the Chinese lenses these days. If I have to pick something to moan about, it has to be the lack of electrical contact. Laowa has made a few proper micro four thirds lenses recently with full electrical contact that not only control the aperture, but also provides metadata to the camera. That also conveniently sets the IBIS automatically and enabling peaking during focusing. Even without the aperture control, I was hoping that some form of electrical contact to help setting the stabilization and peaking automatically. which would be beneficial to any photographers. While everything about the Argus has moved forward, some in a big way, the lack of lens-to-camera communication seems a step backward, especially after seeing what can be done with their own brilliant 7.5mm and 60mm macro Outtro lenses. Another thing I find a little odd is the ultra-long focus throw at close range distances. This lens can shoot pretty close at 25cm, but if you want to change the focus from this to 1 meter, you almost need a 3/4 turn, which is unbelievable and behaves more like a macro lens than a standard prime. But from 1 meter to infinity, well, you only need a slight twist. So, very slow focus at close-ups and extremely quick at distance, which you would need sometimes to adjust before you can control this lens properly. I can forget my slight disappointment if Laowa's new Argus 25mm 0.95 performs in the real world. Well, in terms of optical design, it is a beast of a lens. 14 elements in 8 groups, with 1 aspherical element, 1 ED element, and 1 UHR element. Well, I may not be shooting models anytime soon, but I took the lens out to my family bowling, just to see how this lens performed in tricky lighting situation. And I think the Argus performed extremely well in the real world. But of course, I want to do my usual brick wall test just to see exactly how good this lens is, optically, when it compares to other lenses I've tested in this channel. I would say that the Argus is definitely the best 0.95 lens from China, and perhaps one of the best 0.95 lenses for under £1,500. And that says a lot considering the list price of this lens is way below that figure. As you can see from the center, it's very good with good amount of details, and there's a hint of halo that may look like haze, but it is a characteristic that is common with ultra-fast lenses. Stopping down does improve things dramatically, and you can get details that literally poke your eyeballs at 2.8. Optimal is 6.3 before diffraction creeps in at f11. Edges is slightly weaker, but by no means unsharp. If you want edge-to-edge sharpness, set it to 2.8. Optimal is f8, and again, diffraction can ruin your day at f11, which, by the way, is the smallest aperture setting with the Argus. One thing I love about Laowa is many of its optics are very well designed and corrected. Remember, there are no lens profiles in either OM or Panasonic camera bodies. So, Laowa works very hard to make these lenses perform without much digital corrections. With that said, distortion is almost none, and nothing that I would say needing correction unless you're shooting some straight lines. Vignette is present though, around 3/4 stop lost at the corners when set to 0.95, but all disappear by f2. Flare control is reasonable, but you do get some internal ghosting if you really push the lens hard by shooting directly into the sun or other very bright light source. When shooting wide open, you also get a bit of coma or smearing in high contrast areas of the frame. Stopping down to f2 though, will eliminate it completely. Oh my. Oh, hang on, I'm not disappointed. In fact, quite the opposite. I am very impressed. With 9 rounded blades, the wide open performance is exceptional. The bokeh balls are creamy, and this remains to 1.4 before you start to notice any edges in the bokeh balls. And this result brings quite an interesting draw for the Argus, especially when shooting between 0.95 and 1.4. And I really like it. have no problem recommending the Argus for video if this is your intention. Breathing is not an issue. Together with the clicker's aperture, you almost get a cine lens. But just be mindful about the very long focus throw at the close distance range, as I mentioned earlier. In summary, I have to give my hats to Laowa, who keep pushing the envelope for Micro Four Third lens selection. I personally own a few Laowa lenses and they're great for many things, from travel landscape to filming documentaries. And there are many options and choices, which is always great to have as consumers. The Argus is notably a great lens, and also the best Micro Four Third lens that Laowa has to offer in 2022. There isn't anything comparable in this class, so to me, it's an easy recommendation if you love great manual lenses. And what goes on from here will be interesting. Despite a few shortcomings, the Argus 25mm f0.95 has set a very high bar for future Laowa lenses. And perhaps, one day, they will make a full auto AF lens that compares well with the native Panasonic and OM optics. Now, let's wait and see. This brings to the end of this review, and let me know what you think about Laowa's new Argus lens. And what would you like to see from Laowa? And let's have a discussion in the comment section below. And you know what to do now. Thumb if you enjoyed this review and sub to stay in touch with all things photography, filmmaking, and of course, OM system. Peace.